God bless all of you beautiful miracles and children of God, and welcome to the Gnostic Union. Today we have July Mass, and we welcome you here for this Mass, or communion, a gathering. We have here Bishop David and me, Bishop Nathan Wilson. Blessings to all of you, and we welcome you, and we hope this day, this night, this weather, whichever you may be in, regardless of whether you find beauty in it. You find beauty in life and enjoy the miracle that you are and the miracles that surround you in life. So, today, as a customary beginning, we light our candles. We state what we're grateful for, or if you'd like to do this at home, we encourage you to do the same, whoever may be watching. So I light this candle and I'm grateful for community, for life itself, and for the ability to be able to learn and change and to accept one another.
My candle's already lit, but I'm thankful for, just like you said, community. And again, I'm thankful for the knowledge that we have, that's been passed down to us, that we can take advantage of in this day and age. That even though these things seem ancient, they do play a part in our day-to-day life in the 21st century. So I'm thankful for all the millions of souls that went through great lengths to preserve this knowledge, to make sure that we have it today.
Beautiful. So today's sermon is about Jesus casting the demons. Some people would prefer the word demon. We can use the word archons into pigs, into the swine, and what me and David feel to be our own interpretation of the text. As here in the Gnostic Union, we have our own beliefs, we have our own interpretations, as this should be encouraged to have your own understanding and to delve deeper into your understanding to ultimately receive gnosis, divine knowledge that is gifted to you by what is divine, and to embrace that moment within yourself. So I'm reading from the Gospel of Matthew. I'm using also my translations from the Gnostic Truth Bible. I shouldn't call it my translations. I should just call it Gnostic Truth Bible or Gnostic Christian Truth Bible. So it goes from 8.28 to 8.34, so it's not too long. So I can read it and discuss my feelings of this. And if you'd like to read it too, David, you're welcome to, or you can just discuss your own interpretation of it after I read it and discuss mine, whichever. Okay. So Jesus heals two men with demons or diamonds. And when he had come to the other side, to the land, or translates the region, of the Gadarenes, sorry if I butcher that word, two men under the power of a daemon come out of the tombs extremely violent, so that not anyone was able to pass by that way. And behold, they cried out, saying, "What have we to do with you, Son of God? Did you come here to torment us before our time?" Now there was far off from them a herd of pigs feeding, and the demons were begging him, saying, "If you cast us out, send us to the herd of pigs." And he said to them, "Go." And having gone out, they went away into the pigs, and behold, the whole herd rushed down the steep bank into the sea and drowned in the waters. Those now feeding them fled, and having gone away into the city, they related everything, including the matter of those being under the power of demons. And behold, the whole city came out in response to Jesus, and seeing him, they begged him to depart from their borders. So, my interpretation of this text is we have one being tortured, or two people being tortured, and in case here, by demons, inflicted by archons, by that which I would state to be also intrusive thoughts that do not belong to us, thoughts that are made to bind us to this material world, to make us feel little worth, to forget that where we come from, forget that we are children of God, tormented before our time. So, in my belief, I believe that when the soul ascends, we judge over those powers that tried to bind us, and we sentence them to the Gehenna, to the destruction, to be no more, as we ascend to the divine realms. So these daemons, these archons, are trying to bound this person, and Jesus is casting them out before their current time, before this end of the life of this person. He's casting them out, freeing them, giving this person rebirth is the symbolism behind this. So no longer bound to what once controlled him. The diamonds or spirits wandering near the tombs. We see this in many ancient cultures. The belief of those who died angry with God can become evil spirits or angry spirits, wandering spirits, or even this belief of diamonds being pagan gods that have fallen and in turn are near tombs and whatnot, causing possessions. There was a big different belief back then in these times. So the pigs, in sense, were not kosher as well. We also have the belief in some Gnostic groups, such as the Paulinians. They believed that Yahweh or Yahweh had the form of a pig as well as of a cat or lion or dragon. So a shape-shifting demiurge, basically. So we have many different theologies where to take this too in regarding to Gnostic thoughts. I also see this as because these farmers were definitely not just your standard Jewish people, as they didn't take pigs. This place, this city had pagan gods being worshipped. So I see Jesus as casting out these gods, bringing knowledge to the true God, something higher above gods of this earth, gods of man, something beyond all of that. So bringing the people back, and they're fearful of this because people are converting, they want him to leave. So that's some of my theology on some of this. But I also want to stress that to me, it's really about rebirth and overcoming the darkness that bounds us. And these pigs are what's drowning, is meaning the destruction. So they're lost in this world. So, and returning to this world. So they are bound by it. So the soul is not bound to this world only if you let it be. Rather, the soul belongs to God, belongs to what's higher than this material plane. So that's my interpretation. Dave, would you like to share yours or read whichever you like to go about this?
Yeah, so I read. I won't read the entire one, but I've taken it more so from the Gospel of Mark. And what is interesting in the Gospel of Mark, it just says that a man. So it doesn't say two men; it just say a man, and he was bound. Bound with shackles. He was living amongst the tombs. People, it says the people in the city or around him were trying to, they couldn't bind him. They couldn't, nobody was successful. And I want to take this a little bit more so from a historical standpoint of the ancient world at that time, and seeing the actions of Jesus is not unlike how ancient magicians and sorcerers would tame or do exorcism, so to speak. The thing of the people in the town, they didn't have success binding him, could be interpreted as, yeah, they probably couldn't bind him with physical chains, but the other magicians and sorcerers or maguses or whoever in the city or in that town at that time couldn't use their magical prowess or powers or whatever like that to bind the demon or the demons that were in the man. I also find it very interesting too that that since he was living amongst tombs, 9 times out of 10, it probably was not just simply supernatural demons or archons, but also to the ghosts of the dead that were probably living amongst the tombs at that time. Um, of course, we know how the word demon has become, well, how we refer to the word demon and daemon today. But of course, in ancient times, especially in the original Greek that this was written in, daemon did not mean the same thing. It wasn't a necessarily purely an evil spirit. In this case, we are looking at it as purely a disturbing, evil thing. But a daemon could have been a good spirit, or a spirit that followed you around. And there's a really good movie or TV series too, and book is based off a book series. I believe it's called His Dark Materials. And in the story, a person's daemon or demon follows them around in the form of an animal. So we see that originally demon wasn't what we interpreted it as today. But so that's one of the things I want to talk about too, is that he had that the being bound by shackles could be interpreted two ways: that physically they could not bind him because his possession made him unnaturally strong, and two, spiritually and magically, the people in that town that probably practiced some sort of magical art could not bind the demon or cause the demon to leave the man. And so what Jesus is saying is that when Jesus came into the town,
It's just cut out on your end, David.
we see that when to know a God's name or to know a spirit's name is to effectively have power over it. So we do see here that when Jesus encounters and he says, "What's your name?" and the demon responds to him and says, "My name is Legion, for we are many." The fact that the demon even said the name already signals the fact that Jesus was successful in casting out what was in the man. Also, let's see. That's another a lot of this really good book. I encourage everybody to get Magic and Christianity by Robert Connor, From Jesus to the Gnostics. Really goes into this fascinating story. I also find it interesting too that when he after Jesus cleanses the man of the spirit, the people around him, at least in the Mark's account, the people around him go out and they begin to preach in the cities of towns of what Jesus had done for them and done for the man. And it says, and everyone marvels. But of course, in Matthew's account, we see that people didn't want Jesus around. Like, no, get out of here. And again, I think that we have to understand that it goes into the worldview at that time, that not only do I personally think that it was just the people around the common people, so to speak, but I think like every town and group of people at that time had a sorcerer or magician in their town. So we're seeing too that a lot of them probably didn't want Jesus around because of competition. You know, who are you? How are you able to? Because that authority Jesus has, that it says that when Jesus went into the when he went, that people marveled around him because he taught and he had authority, not like the teachers of the law did. And that word authority doesn't mean that he had authority in the sense that the teachers of the law knew the law too. They knew I mean, they spent their entire lives to it. But the authority Jesus had, it speaks of that spiritual authority to actually command something, to go around and to tell a demon to come out of a man. And you have magicians and sorcerers and other spiritual practitioners that probably have spent from their childhood upward training to do this. They can't get it done. But this um Jewish Galilean or whoever, it's a lot of things about Jesus ethnicity and stuff like that. But just for what we know, Jewish guy, he able to just walk up in here and just and just tell a legion of demons effectively to go be cast into pigs. And again, like you mentioned, the fact that these are herds of pigs. I think even in the I think it was like 200 or more or so. 9 times out of 10, these cities and towns that Jesus was entering into, it said it was 10 cities and towns around the time, was definitely probably a Gentile heavy influence Greek cities and towns. So we see this why these pigs are around. And Jesus effectively cast them into the ocean and they're drowning. A lot of us know that the ocean and water a lot of times in spiritual texts represents the consciousness of people or the subconscious of people. So it's interesting that these demons or these archons, so to speak, are drowning effectively in the subconsciousness of humanity. And we all know, like, what you don't face in your subconscious comes out of us in positive ways and also two negative ways. So I think it could even be, like you said too, even be looked at a psychological level of, forget some other supernatural force taking over us, but how many of us have in our own lives right now forces and habits and passions and things like that that control us, and there are numerous. And when we sort of come out of it, we realize that that's not who I truly am. There's something deeper in us that knows that this is not really who I really am. But again, sometimes, like it says, the spirit is willing, but our flesh is weak. And because humanity has we identify with our flesh more often than we identify with our eternal spirit, we feel that a lot of times these things uh, are too hard to overcome. But again, taking this from Jesus' example, to name something in our own lives, name what that is, and you have power over it. If you know that that's fear, you have to name that fear. If you know that that's a bad habit, you have to know and name that bad habit, and that's what gives you power over it. So that's my I know it's a long diatribe thing, but
A good
that's
one.
my interpretations and stuff like that of one of my favorite stories actually in the Gospels of Jesus healing the man full of legions too. And also too, I find it interesting, and again it goes into the history of it, that he said that the author of the book Magic and Christianity said that the fact that he says that my name is Legion and the Legion is thrown into pigs could be a play on the negative view of Romans at the time, because Roman armies were called legions and they were thrown into pigs, which is actually funny because even again, there's nothing new under the sun. In the United States of America, the police and the law enforcement are sometimes called by us common people pigs. Uh, and then lastly, too, going into the piece of Sophia, one of my favorite Gnostic texts, there is a it's not Yaldabaoth, but there's another archon that has a big role in a part of the piece of Sophia, and it's described to have the face of a pig. So we see that pigs were very maligned in ancient times, whereas and of course, again, coming from a Judeo Jewish context, because we know the Gentiles didn't really have that view of pigs. A lot of times, pigs, the fact that it was 200 pigs could have been to feed the Roman armies that were in that area, since pigs were a big part of the Roman diet.
That's a good one as well. I also think with the meaning of legion and also the word diamond, I think it could also be associated with the Greco-Roman gods, as there were Essene groups and Enochian Jews that believed that those gods were the fallen angels
Yeah.
being worshipped by mankind and leading mankind astray. So it's definitely interesting when we look at these ancient thoughts of the time, especially with the Judean perspective as well. So we see a little bit of anti-Rome. We can also see it being pro-zealot, pro-mystic, so many things. I see this as definitely being shared by different groups and their own
Hmm.
understanding it within Christianities. So
Because
yeah,
I
that
do,
was a
at
fantastic sermon.
my personal life, I know this sometimes could maybe consider blasphemy, but I do, in my personal view, do look at Yeshua or Jesus as being a bit of a magician. I think that a lot of the techniques that he used were not uncommon for a lot of the magicians and things of that day. But then that goes into a whole nother thing of whether Jesus was trained or whether, all the kind of stuff. But I think it's very fascinating stuff. But I think it is very interesting too that a lot of the towns and stuff like that didn't want Jesus around, and I don't think it really had a lot of it. I don't think it really had anything to do with just common people not really wanting Jesus around, because we see that sometimes the crowds love Jesus and want to listen to what he's saying, and then sometimes they don't want anything to do with him. So it's like, which one is it?
There's a little fun thing I've heard I would like to end that little sermon thing on, basically, and it's regarding Simon Magus. They call him Simon the Magician, but
Mm,
Simon didn't do much magic. He was a big philosopher, so I think it was
yeah,
just Simon the Great, and in that case, we can call, because he was aiming to be Christ-like. So in some ways, we can call Simon Magus Simon the Christ, and we could call Jesus Jesus the Magus, so
yeah.
Jesus the Magician, because he was doing much more magic than Simon. He was doing a lot, you could argue.
And
So
which
in
is
some
pretty
ways, we have
interesting too,
this.
with even the word magus coming from a ancient Persian. I even have this Zoroastrian pendant where magus and magi coming from that. So I think even with Simon Magus, if that was used as a form of a derogatory, we see how clearly this how maligned and magicians and the idea of practicing magic and things like that became later on, where they were able to use this against somebody. Oh, he a magician. I was like, oh no, I don't want to do well, it's blasphemy. It's not God, whatever like that. So I find that very interesting too, just how just from a historical standpoint, how one time magicians and the mayors, so of that town, would have been highly revered. But we clearly see this thing where slowly but surely the thought of practicing magic became a derogatory thing and was even labeled against Gnostics a lot of times, when 9 times out of 10 what they were doing, at least from our standpoint, we wouldn't consider that magic. But the people, the Christian Orthodox Church, just call it for what it is, looked at that and tried to use that as a thing of, no, that's wrong, that's bad. They're worshiping demons and worshiping the devil and all that kind of stuff. So we see it played out even to this day. So it's really, like I said, it's nothing new under the sun.
There was a man, I believe, I forget his name. Might be I know it was Alexandria. It might be Epiphanes.
Mhm.
He was one of the church fathers, and he calls himself a Gnostic, which is also quite interesting as well.
Mhm.
And he states that they're true Gnostics, so knowers of
Yeah.
Christianity, which is quite interesting. And they talk about
Mhm.
different types of Gnostics in the sense of the word. It's such a pun. So
Really,
it's
yeah,
beautiful.
yeah.
So I
And I
think
think
we
only
should
in the
end this
twenty
on this
first
one then, David.
century. I think even only I don't want to say only in the 21st century, but definitely in the 21st century, we as Gnostics have sort of reclaim that word as that's no, that's what we are. Versus in the past, sometimes it could be like, well, many Orthodox Christians today wouldn't dare say I'm a true Gnostic. So I find it very, very interesting, even how the word Gnostic has become maligned, and we see. I mean, I see even on YouTube and internet and stuff like that. A lot of Orthodox evangelical Christians use Gnosticism or use the word Gnostic as a scary thing, and it has nothing to do with historical Gnosticism, nothing to do with, but they know if I can just slap that label on it, like magic, like the word witch, like the word, it just all of a sudden it becomes a boogeyman.
It's interesting. It's ironic and it's also quite sad because there's no escaping it if you want to look at the historical Jesus or the historical early Christian movement. So it's
Mhm.
something good that we're able to help bring back, especially with the world of the internet.
And then going back to, I will leave it at this. Like I said, I'm on a time constraint today, unfortunately. But even we see it here how the story of Jesus casting the legion out of the man is used even by the Catholic Church as a template of how they perform exorcisms. Even if you see, even casting demons out of a person into an animal was not uncommon. There was, I mean, we even see that symbolically, even in how the Israelites would cast all their sins onto the goat. And then throw it out into the wilderness. So we see that this was not an uncommon thing. The original audience that would have been reading Mark and reading these things, this wouldn't have been an uncommon thing for them. And of course, the church today uses it as a template. You can watch any exorcist type movie. I actually watched I think it was called The Pope's Exorcist, a recent movie that had I forget the guy's name, Russell Crowe. I think he played the gladiator, but he was playing an exorcist. And at the beginning of the movie, there's a man possessed by a demon, and he casts the demon into a pig and then kills the pig. So that was very interesting. But he had to know the demon's name. That he had to get that demon's name because therein lies the power. Even in ancient Egyptian magic, to know a god's name, to know his secret name, you effectively have control over that spirit. So the gods weren't these, at least in ancient times, weren't these beings where they were all powerful. A magician or a spiritual practitioner had the power to control that deity to do what it wanted if it knew the name. And we see this again in today's, a lot of today's, from the Goetia to angelic magic, all that we see the same thing.
That's a good little ending for it. So for our customary ending, we have the bread and the wine. I like to bring out a vessel, not because it's gold, but rather because it's symbolic for our bodies that contain the treasure, and it's symbolic for the temple that also contains the treasure. So ultimately, that treasure within is ultimately what this is all about. So it's not about a place, but rather the treasure that is the soul, or the treasure that is the mind, that is a replication of the mind of God. So the flesh may decay, this will crumble and decay, but the soul does not, and that which returns to a place that does not decay, where worms do not devour and moths do not touch. So we take this bread as symbolic for Jesus' earthly teachings, and we take them into ourselves. We take in the body of Christ to become like Christ for ourselves. And now we take on the wine, the blood. And in turn, we take on Jesus or Yeshua, Yehoshua, the Christ, the Logos, spiritual teachings, which I like the saying from the Gospel of Thomas, let those drink from my mouth become like me and I become like them, or he or she. And I am with that one. So this meaning that you too are a child of God, that you take on the Christ for yourself and return as a son or daughter of God. So we thank you for joining us here on this Mass, this communion. We hope that you take on these teachings throughout your day to find your own relationship with God, to search within yourself what it means to be Christ-like and take on these properties and virtues. So with this, God bless all of you, fantastic wonders, children of God. May you find peace, may you receive blessings and abundance and love. We thank you and goodbye.